Today, we're going to talk about prediabetes symptoms and screening so that you can recognize your risk quickly. In this eye opening video, we're going to delve into the world of prediabetes, a condition that's often overlooked but has potentially life altering consequences. Join me as we uncover the key reasons why recognizing the signs and undergoing timely screening is so important for your long term health. Did you know that over 88 million adults in the United States are living with prediabetes? And a shocking 84%, 90% by some sources, are unaware of their condition? Even more alarming, without intervention, up to 70% of individuals with prediabetes are going to go on to develop type 2 diabetes within their lifetime. So I want you to understand how important it is for you to recognize the symptoms of prediabetes and the importance of early screening so you can prevent progression to full-blown diabetes. This is really important because I want you to stay tuned. Make sure you know how to know if you're one of those 84 or 90% of pre-diabetics that don't even know it yet, because there are steps you can take to protect your health. So I want to talk about the 10 risk factors for developing prediabetes that you need to know about it. These are kind of the top 10. These are things that are setting you up for the development of prediabetes. One of the first things is excess weight or obesity. We're seeing a very strong correlation between carrying extra weight and the development of prediabetes. You see, when your body is carrying extra fat, it directly impacts your insulin sensitivity and your ability to metabolize glucose. We talked more about that in number one in this series. So you might want to go back and review that if you missed it, where we talk more about what's going on in your body with prediabetes so that you understand that. Second risk is a sedentary lifestyle. You see, as we stop moving, as we spend more time on the couch or at a desk in front of a screen, that decrease in physical activity makes us more insulin resistant because we lose muscle mass, and muscle mass is very important to good insulin sensitivity. And as we fail to move, we fail to use up the stored fat in our muscles, which means when we eat a meal and we need to get that blood sugar into the tissues, the muscle cells, which do a lot of that uptake, are saying, no, no, I'm good. I'm satisfied. I don't need any more energy. Thank you very much, because they haven't been used. As you use your muscles, it creates storage depots for the sugar in your bloodstream that is there after every meal, gives it a place to go. So, third area that's very important for you to understand is your family history. You see, if you have immediate family members, parents, siblings, children that have diabetes, you are in a higher risk category because you probably have a hereditary tendency to diabetes. And this is especially true for type 2 diabetes. For example, in my family, I had two grandparents on the maternal side, four out of eight aunts and uncles, and a sibling. So that would be an example of somebody with a really strong family history of diabetes. And that makes it much more likely that if you aren't making the healthiest choices in your life, you are very likely to end up diabetic as well because you already have the genes for it. But don't forget, the genes are only part of the equation, and your personal lifestyle choices can help to turn off those genes so you don't develop it. But you need to understand if you're running that risk. Another risk factor, this is risk factor number 4 out of 10, is your age. So as you get older, your risk for prediabetes and the development of diabetes goes up. So just being, for example, over the age of 45 means your risk for developing prediabetes is going up. Risk number 5 is high blood pressure. Now, high blood pressure is anything where the top number in your blood pressure, there's two numbers, right? The top number is over 120 or the bottom number is over 80. So anything at 120 over 80 or above, whether only the top number is above that or the bottom number is above it, would mean that you are already out of your optimal blood pressure. You won't get a diagnosis of high blood pressure usually unless you have a consistent trend where you're running blood pressures of 140 over 90. So that little window between 120 and 140 on the top and 80 to 90 on the bottom is what we call the pre-hypertensive window, which means you're no longer in the really healthy range, but they probably won't diagnose you as having high blood pressure either. So just understand that as those blood pressure numbers go up, you are increasing your risk of developing high blood sugars, pre-diabetes, and it means that you've got a lot of inflammation going on in your body. High blood pressure is one of the hallmarks of metabolic syndrome, which is insulin resistance in your body that hasn't quite yet arrived at the level of pre-diabetes. So when you have metabolic syndrome, which is like the combination of several factors, the obesity, high blood pressure, some other of the risk factors that we're talking about here. If you have metabolic syndrome, you want to reverse that because that is completely reversible for like 99.9% of people, and you will avoid the damage to your body caused by prediabetes. So you need to be watching your blood pressure. Number 6 is gestational diabetes. Now, this is something that only women experience because it means you have or had abnormally high blood sugars during pregnancy. What we find is that if you had high blood sugars during pregnancy, you're much more likely to develop type 2 diabetes later on. So sometimes gestational diabetes or diabetes during pregnancy is not identified as such, but it's connected with having like high birth weight babies. So, like if you had a baby that was 9 pounds or larger, that means you're likely at risk for diabetes and might have been experiencing some blood sugar problems during your pregnancy because babies get fat as mommy's blood sugars go up. So it's very important that if you experience gestational diabetes, that you continue to monitor your blood sugars on a regular basis. Make sure you're checking your A1C at least twice a year. So risk factor number 7 is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is also something that only women deal with. And what we see is that there's a very close connection between prediabetes and PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. We see hormonal imbalances and insulin resistance that are associated with PCOS and put you at increased risk for prediabetes. For many people, PCOS diagnosis is the first time they get tested for prediabetes and find out they're pre-diabetic. So some people see PCOS first, some people see prediabetes first as a diagnosis, but they tend to go together. So know that you are dealing with insulin resistance if you're already experiencing PCOS. Risk factor number 8 is ethnicity. What we know is that genetically, certain populations like African Americans, Hispanic ethnic groups, Asian and Native American populations all have a higher predisposition to prediabetes, as do South Pacific Islanders. So if you know that you've got a strong component of one of these ethnic groups in your own makeup, then it's also very important that you be screened on a regular basis so that you pick up any beginning insulin resistance or prediabetes early. Number 9 is an unhealthy diet. That means if you are commonly consuming a diet that is high in processed foods, sugar, or a lot of fat, you are on track to develop prediabetes. So it's really important to think about how can I practice a balanced, nutritious diet if you want to prevent diabetes. And number 10 is sleep disorders. A lot of people don't think about sleep when they think about diabetes, but what we know is that things like sleep apnea, where you stop breathing for a short periods of time during the night, or your blood oxygen levels drop, those stress your body. And as your body is stressed, it produces more cortisol and other stress hormones. Higher levels of those stress hormones push insulin resistance. So we find that sleep disturbances are very closely related to insulin resistance and glucose regulation. So you want to make sure that you are getting those things treated and diagnosed. If you have a partner that says you snore, you should be getting a sleep study to see if you're experiencing sleep apnea. So these 10 risk factors, if you're experiencing any of these, you want to make sure that you are getting screening. Now, screening is at a minimum things like fasting blood sugar and A1C levels, and ideally a glucose tolerance test, which is like a 4-hour test where you can pick up early problems with glucose metabolism. So those are things that you really want to ask your doctor for if you know you've already got one or more of the risk factors that we talked about above. The earlier you pick up on prediabetes, the quicker you can be effective in reversing it, and you can prevent the progression to type 2 diabetes. Every moment that passes without recognizing the signs of prediabetes and taking action is a missed opportunity for you to safeguard your health and prevent a potentially life altering condition. So remember the 10 areas of risk factors: excess weight, a sedentary lifestyle, a family history, middle aged or above, high blood pressure, gestational diabetes, polycystic ovarian syndrome, your ethnicity, an unhealthy diet, and sleep disorders. Those are 10 things that you need to be aware of that might be setting you up for prediabetes right now. So evaluate your own risk factors, be proactive in seeking appropriate medical advice, because the truth is, when we talk about signs and symptoms for prediabetes, most people feel and see nothing. So screening is the most effective way to determine whether you have prediabetes or not, or are going in that direction. So I want you to make sure you prioritize your health. I want you to take charge of your health and take those steps to decrease your risk of developing prediabetes and diabetes. You can start by downloading my free assessment tool. There's a link in the description, and that will walk you through a preliminary risk screening so that you can know right away and for free whether you are needing to look out for this. So I just want to say thank you for watching. I appreciate it if you want to drop any comments or questions below this video. Like it, share it. I want people to have more awareness around prediabetes. So stay tuned for number 4 in this series of 10 on prediabetes 101. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be back soon.